Hello and welcome to World Talks. My name is Sasha Farbach. At a special summit in Paris, Western leaders pledged post-war security guarantees for Ukraine, with 26 countries agreeing to provide troops or equipment once a ceasefire is in place. Though many details remain unclear, discuss the implications and what this could mean for peace in Ukraine. We're joined now by Garvan, Walshe, CEO of Article 7 Intelligence for Democrats. Good to have you back on TVP World, Garvan. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning from Oslo.
So let's begin with what we have. I mean, this was obviously a big deal. Yes, to this announcement. We don't know much of all the little details involved yet. I'm curious also, generally, your first takeaway from this. And also, Macron hinted at there is involvement of the Americans, that he had spoken to Donald Trump. So where are we next with it? What's the next point, and how significant is all this coming together?
I mean, we have an interesting juxtaposition of events, because Macron announces that there might be security guarantees, that the United States could be involved. The European countries have said they could contribute, though the details are obviously very unclear. And then the next day, the Pentagon announces they're reducing support for securing NATO's eastern flank. This is a classic mixed signals from the United States that we've come to learn is essentially their preferred way of operating. It's very unclear what's going to transpire. When we look at security guarantees as well, we have to ask what would be the incentive for Russia to agree to a situation with these security guarantees. At the moment, there are no European troops in Ukraine. If the security guarantees involve European troops in Ukraine, well, that would seem to be a significant worsening of the situation for Russia, and it's not clear why they would agree to such a situation unless they're put under very heavy pressure.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is always, as you said, this mixed signaling as well, but always the question we always ask, we have to have Russia accept it. It goes back and forth. We then search for the American involvement. I mean, can this work without the Americans involved in any way? I mean, it seems like there's a next step of determination, but we've had so many summits, we've had so many calls, but are we treading water here? Are we moving the needle? Where is this all going?
I mean, if the security guarantees are to be credible, there needs to be a feeling in Moscow that they will be enforced. And Europe needs to send a very strong signal that they will act if Russia violates any terms of any agreement that might be reached. It's not sending those kind of signals. Rather, countries are saying, well, we might send troops or we might send equipment, but we don't want them to be in harm's way. And they're not sending the signals that would deter Russia across a broad front, because we shouldn't see this just as a matter of Russia versus Ukraine, but about the Russian posture in Europe in general, which includes the Baltic states, it includes Poland, it includes Finland. And also, I say this here in Oslo, it also includes the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. Russia has a significant presence there, and here they're very much looking to the north as a possible area of threat. We need to think about our posture overall vis-a-vis Russia. It's not just a question of Ukraine here.
Mm-hmm. Also, you mentioned some of those key countries. I want to just hone in on Poland for a moment. I mean, the Prime Minister has ruled out that there would be no involvement of Polish troops in Ukraine, any kind of reassurance or peacekeeping force. I mean, this sort of also sends mixed signals. I mean, Poland has been a strong advocate of Ukraine. It's in NATO's eastern flank. Does this sort of drop the ball here for Warsaw? What do you make of the Prime Minister's statement? Is that final, you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think it makes sense for other countries that are close to the Russian border or the border of satellite Russian states like Belarus to take troops away from their fronts and put them in Ukraine. Their deterrence is best achieved by keeping them where they are, beyond a few specialist units that might be important. Similarly, Finland shouldn't be taking its troops away from the border with Russia to put them in Ukraine. That would be really a matter for Western European countries or perhaps Germany. Now, this opens up other questions. Can adding troops really make a difference to deterrence, or is it other capabilities that matter? I think where the West could make most difference to deterring Russia, insofar as it involves putting equipment and personnel in Ukraine, it's really a question of the Air Force. Can they say that, well, if at the moment you're fighting Ukraine and you're not really doing well, you're inching forward very slowly, but if you break this agreement that they haven't signed, but if you were to break an agreement, you'd then actually be fighting with European air forces, and they would inflict the kind of damage on Russian forces that Ukrainian land troops have been unable to so far.
Speaking also of air power, and I think air reach, I think this is significant as well. Keir Starmer, UK Prime Minister, said that he wants to supply more long-range missiles to Ukraine. He got heat immediately, I think, from Russian authorities for that. I mean, that is, I think, some kind of deterrence, isn't it? And do you think that'll convince maybe countries like the Germans still, who haven't provided that kind of technology?
I mean, one would hope that they could provide Taurus. That would be a clear response to the series of provocations that Russia has been engaging in over the past few weeks, but it's still very difficult within the German coalition. Germans also find it difficult to supply manpower for troops rather than just equipment. I think it's more a matter of aerial platforms than missiles if we're talking about a post-peace deal situation. I don't think right now they're willing to send air forces into battle, obviously, against Russia, though there is a compelling argument for, what's known as the Sky Shield proposal, which would involve Western aircraft based outside Ukraine, protecting the western half of Ukraine's airspace. But really, the importance of air power here is as a deterrent, and because of their ability to attack Russian ground forces in a way that Ukraine can't do, and therefore change the calculus in Moscow. Defending against air attacks with missiles is an extremely expensive business. We're on the wrong side of the cost curve here. What we really need to do is support further Ukrainian long-range missile development. They seem to have two excellent systems, the Flamingo and the Long Neptune, that could be brought to bear to cause further damage to Russian energy infrastructure. That also seems to be what Ukraine is doing with its existing drone attacks. They're trying to cut off Russia's financial lifeline by making it much harder for them to export oil. There's some evidence that there are fuel shortages in parts of Russia away from Moscow and St. Petersburg. I don't think it's in the near future they're going to be able to cause fuel shortages in those politically sensitive parts of Russia, but they're certainly able to reduce Russian export earnings by continually interfering with Russian energy production.
Also, I'm curious about that because you mentioned energy and oil. I think Europe is still making significant, rather Russia is making still significant money from last year as well through oil and gas that it supplies into the European Union. Trump has said there needs to be more pressure on this. So where are we with this? Is there some kind of new policy shaping up here? Brussels as well. What can we expect here with energy as a pressure point?
There's an effort to try and tighten sanctions. They're thinking of tariffs on Russian production. They're also thinking of looking at alternative supplies. Slovakia and Hungary are resisting this strongly. And that's why they're thinking of tariffs, because they can't be vetoed, whereas sanctions can be vetoed. And look, I'm saying this from Norway, which has a large amount of gas that can be used to supply Europe, and Norway is a strong democracy and isn't going to try and evade its obligations as a member of NATO or of the European Economic Area. It's not in the EU, but it's very closely related to the European Union here in Norway. So they should look for gas from here rather than gas from hostile Russia.
Right. And I think also that's going to be concerning, especially after what we just heard from, I know it's a small component, but Robert Fico in China also thanking Vladimir Putin for those energy supplies. So that's going to probably set off some conflict there. I want to loop back quickly also to good news we heard earlier in the week. President Nawrocki of Poland in the White House very much got a very direct acknowledgement that there would be U.S. troops that would continue to stay in Poland, maybe more on the way. What do you make of this? Again, we have mixed signals with, as you said earlier, with certain types of funding maybe being cut on frontline states. What do you make of that statement? Will we see a redraw here, more U.S. troops, or redrawn elsewhere from different parts of Europe to Poland or the eastern flank?
I think we're seeing an active divide and rule by the Trump administration here. They're trying to say, look, if you're friendly with us, if you've got a president that's friendly to us, we can back you up. If you're not, we're not going to back you up. But this cuts across any strategic question of alliance politics. It's not about protecting Poland on its own, but we need to look at the European alliance as a whole. How do we protect Europe across the broad front where Russia is able to pose a threat? Poland isn't able to defend on its own because of its geographical position. It would end up surrounded. It's really important to continue to build up relations with European allies in the European Union, in the Baltic states, down on the Black Sea with Romania and Bulgaria. This is a broad Russian threat that it poses to Europe, and we need to be very wary of attempts by a Trump administration that's been historically pro-Russian to try and interfere with that united front and interfere with long-established NATO war plans for defense against Russian aggression.
Mm-hmm. And looking at maybe not even long-term plans, as you said, but medium-term. I mean, with this announcement from last night, these security guarantees, we still don't know all the details of there. We know that certain countries will contribute troops. Germany, Italy. We're guessing what that might be. But what is the next step here? I mean, we'll have the Americans now on board. I mean, all this process moves rather slowly. We're hearing reassurances from NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. This takes time. So, how much time also do we need? And what do you think might be happening in the next few days on this?
I mean, I think there's another way of looking at these security guarantees, which is that they're a way to keep the Trump administration from doing something very counterproductive. It keeps them occupied, and in that sense, the more time it takes, the better, because they're not a realistic policy to be implemented for two reasons. The first one is that Russia has no reason to agree to this kind of situation that would leave it worse off from where it is right now. It would rather continue fighting. The second one is that it's not clear what these what guarantees would actually really be enforceable here. Ukraine already has 800,000 people under arms. Adding a few thousand European troops doesn't really make much of a difference. I did say the air component could make a difference, but we're not really talking about that air component. If these guarantees start involving significant European air bases in Ukraine, combined with a buildup of European troops in Finland, there's a new NATO brigade command has been created by Finland, even though it's only been in the allowance for 1 year, which is incredibly efficient of Helsinki. If those things can be combined, then it starts to affect the Russian strategic posture. Again,
right, so on that one, I'll have to interrupt you there, unfortunately, coming towards the end, Garvan. I mean, there's more to analyze, but we'll have to cut it there. Thank you so much for that. Really interesting insights. We'll see how it all develops in the next days and weeks ahead. Thanks. That was Garvan Walshe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but there's much more coming up right here on TVP World. Goodbye.